Good morning, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing. We wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. The government is not always your enemy. It's very convenient to look up to the people in power, making their speech on podiums and stuff like that. But running a government is an incredibly complicated thing. A lot of times in my life, I have found the government actually does the right thing. But their decisions get messed up and screwed around by interpretation or implementation. When I was in university, I might have told this story before, but I'm going to go over it just because I can. The conservative government that was notorious for slashing budgets and stuff actually gave an increase to post-secondary institutions. They gave them more money. However, the board of directors chose to raise tuition even though they were getting more money from the government. The students all get puffed up and we're going to go protest at City Hall and, local House of Parliament, we're going to do this. I'm like, but they did their job. It's the board of directors. We don't have to leave campus. We can protest the right people. We don't need to get transportation down the city. We don't need to do any of that stuff. Right here is our problem. Nobody listens to me because it's easier to protest the government than to understand what a board of directors actually does at a university. I'm cool with that. But here I am, many years later, and seeing such a blatant disregard for the wishes of Canadians that it's staggering. So the Canadian financial year is a little bit weird. The Canadian financial year begins on April the 1st, but they don't publish their budget until April 16th. That's what the finance minister's job is. This is important. Keep those dates in mind. April 16th is when the budget is put in place. I've talked about this before, but now I've seen the budget and it sickens me. So we had a Bill C-22, that I have reasons to be invested in because it's supposed to be extra income for disabled people. I know lots of people my age, all sorts of ages, that we are parents and caregivers for. And any assistance is helpful. The medication ain't cheap. You need to have a therapist / nurse / you need all sorts of support. And again, it does not come cheap. There was a committee that's been doing nothing but studying and proposing and putting everything together for the past 4 years. Last June, Bill C-22 was passed into effect. This June, it becomes law. The government set aside $1.5 billion to make sure this program goes through. Almost everybody in every party, 99% of Parliament, if not 100% of Parliament, and I listened to the debates personally because I found it interesting, they're all behind it. They're saying, yes, this is a good benefit. This helps a whole lot of people. Now, unfortunately, when you get down to stick figures and start doing some maths, sorry, I hate the word maths. Don't mind hearing it from a British person. Everybody else, it just sounds ridiculous. But let's take that $1.5 billion. And the original figure given out that was going to be given to the roughly 330,000 people across Canada that qualify for disability. The original figure is they get about 300 million, or 300 million a month would be nice. About $300 a month. So I sat down, broke 1.5 billion down per person. Works out to about $375 per month. Okay, so I'm going to take $75 as an administration fee because you do need to run an infrastructure. That gives you $245 million in budget just to run your team. Keep in mind there's already a disability benefit in place, and this is a supplement to it, so they can copy the database, the spreadsheet, whatever you want to call it, paste it, and set up and get going. I do appreciate you're going to need to audit some people. You're going to have fact checkers going back and forth. Oh, that person was disqualified for whatever reason. There is going to need to be auditing. But you have a $245 million budget for that. When somebody gets approved on the one program, you put it on the other. Even worse, almost everybody, again, in Parliament, whether they're Bloc Québécois, NDP, Conservative, Liberal, the PPC party, they're all saying we need this done immediately. It's a non-partisan issue. It's not often you get an issue that they say, yes, let's all do this. This committee that's putting this benefit together, that has had 4 years to be paid and study it and everything, says, the first checks will be delivered in about June, July 2025. Excuse me? Like, you're not hurting for money. You were given the money this year to become operational. You don't even have that much overhead, given that it already overlaps with another program quite heavily. There's like almost zero difference between the two. And the idea is to help Canadians with disabilities get out of poverty. The government did their job. They gave $1.5 billion for the next 3 years, and they figure $1.4 billion after that. It's a commitment written in. It doesn't take $1.5 billion to set up an organization, especially not in a government that already has people paid to do it. This is just sheer laziness out of a committee that the money's there. They got their wish list. All they need to do is implement it. And they're sitting around because they like their fat cat jobs where they keep, quote, studying, end quote, despite the fact they put the legislation together, they got what they wanted, and now they're sitting on a $1.5 billion to do what? To hire your friends and family? And again, it's not the government's fault. The government is all in agreement. It's this darn committee. And they're gatekeeping this money for reasons I don't know. We need to remember, we can throw insults at Justin Trudeau, Pierre Poilievre, and anybody else we want to. They did their job. They 100% did their job. It's these lazy fat cat bureaucrats who are probably going to spend as much time as they can denying everybody because they're afraid to do work. And it's just, I feel bad for all the families that were hoping to have a little something extra. Maybe you do have the medication, the therapy, and everything covered, but you know what? Autistic people are people too. Maybe they like cars. You can get them some model cars and they'll be happy as anybody. Maybe they like puzzles. Maybe they like playing certain video games. Maybe they like cooking. You don't know what their strengths and their weaknesses are. Somebody who's disabled because they were hurt at work, that extra $300, even if they have all their bases covered, it would be awfully nice to have that specialty tea. I'm trying to think of little ways people spoil themselves that they can't normally afford because they're just barely making their expenses. And of course, when somebody falls below that poverty line, the only way to make it is to keep dropping back and not paying your expenses one day or another and hope that you have the money to catch up with it later. It's a big injustice. And again, it's not caused by the government. It's caused by the stooges of the government. So next time somebody says, this leader is no good because they didn't do this, stop. Go look it up. They might have voted against something, but even the people that dissented with the bill were saying this is not constitutional. It doesn't recognize the provincial rights and stuff like that. Those are good objections. I'm going to vote against this because the private insurance companies can see this benefit and then deduct it from their bill. Well, that's something that needs to go back in front of the committee who actually addressed that in the original bill. It was supposed to not happen, ran into problems with provincial politics, but it was put in there by the committee. The committee already negotiated all this stuff. So what are they doing with that 1.5 billion intended for disabled Canadians? I don't know if you're allowed to sit on it and then use it the next year, and that way you have some money in reserve. But even so, when their own study said this needs to be done now, not later, you have the infrastructure in place. You might need some more employees, do some auditing, stuff like that. That's what your 245 million is for. And then you're dropping it down to $200 a month, supposedly. But they don't know. They had 4 years to sit around and study, and they don't know. It's a crying shame. And yeah, if you're Canadian, write your person of choice because it's simply ridiculously unfair to everybody involved. And once again, the government's going to take heat for it when they did what they were expected to do. With that, we hope you enjoyed this episode of the Silverlight Show. Well, maybe not enjoyed, but were informed by it. Share, because sharing is caring. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Please click the notification icon so that way you can be notified every time we upload a new episode. And we hope you have a fantastic day.